The Lord of the Rings is one of the best trilogies, if not the best trilogy, ever made in the history of film. The dedication and attention to detail which they put into this series is incredible. Now, when it comes to the books versus the movies, there are some big differences. It's pretty easy to point at the differences and say what the books did better than the movies. But what's harder is finding things the movies did which ended up being better than the books. So here's my list of 5 things I thought the movies did better than the books. Number 5. Making the Ents March a last-minute decision. In the movies, as you probably know, Treebeard and the other Ents have their meeting and they choose to stay in Fangorn and avoid fighting Isengard. Throughout the movie, we're pointed out just how the Ents are few in number and the trees are hard to control. Treebeard is angry about how much Saruman betrayed them, but the real depth of feeling seems detached. Now in the books, the Ents actually decide they will go to war after 3 days of discussion, and Merry and Pippin go along for the ride. There's lip service about how they helped persuade Treebeard to take action, but I think the movies do a better job getting that across when Merry furiously berates them for not doing anything, or when Pippin tricks Treebeard into seeing the full extent of Isengard's cruelty. It leads to a moment of realization in Treebeard which still gives me shivers while watching it. Some people will probably find it annoying that the Ents all just happen to be close at hand to march. I'm willing to overlook that plot hole. The point of this scene is that the Ents are finally taking action, they're making a stand, and they're going to avenge all the trees that have been cut down. It's an incredibly dramatic payoff, one of the best in all the films. Number 4. Putting the warg battle into the second film. For those of you who don't know the books, there is a scene in The Fellowship of the Ring between the Mountain Pass attempt and the arrival at Moria. The Fellowship get attacked by wolf-like monsters called wargs. After several attacks, Gandalf uses magic and fire to scare the wargs away. I don't have any issue with the scene, it's a good obstacle, but when it comes to the story structure, I actually prefer the scene when it's moved to the context in the films. We get the population of Edoras fleeing to Helm's Deep under attack by wargs and their orc riders. It made for a highly tense action scene with some good laughs in the middle of it. Again, I don't mind how the warg scene is used in the books, I just think it was put to better use in the films. Number 3. Arwen saving Frodo. I think it's safe to say that Tolkien's Achilles heel was writing women. Anyone can agree that women play a minimal role in Tolkien's story. Éowyn and Galadriel are the only ones who make a serious impact. In the books, Arwen is Aragorn's love interest, but the two of them don't even have an exchange before they get married. Now, the filmmakers wanted to find ways to bring Arwen into the story so that the love story actually matters, and the methods had mixed results, shall we say. Her subplot in Return of the King doesn't work very well, but what does work is having her be the one to save Frodo from the Nazgul in the first film. Now in the books, a character named Glorfindel is the one who meets the hobbits on the way to Rivendell, and after saving them, he doesn't do anything else in the story. Now compare that to Arwen's introduction in the film, how she's brought in to bring Frodo to safety by the skin of her teeth, given that she's being chased by 9 Nazgul simultaneously. People will probably disagree with me, but I think Arwen's showdown with the Nazgul is one of the most epic moments of this series. You just know Arwen is ready to die fighting these terrifying servants of Sauron, and it does a lot to build her up as a character rather than just someone for Aragorn to marry. People can debate over and over how to decrease the gender gap in movies, but in my opinion, Arwen saving Frodo in a badass action scene was a good example of how to do it right. Number 2, no Tom Bombadil. Yes, forgive me, this is the easy one. Everyone agrees on this one. Tom Bombadil is so pointless to the story of Lord of the Rings that even the author himself said he had no idea how Tom Bombadil made it into the final version. In the books, Tom Bombadil saves the hobbits from an obstacle which doesn't make it into the movies, and I don't think anybody really missed that. Losing Tom Bombadil was a boon to this story's pacing, and it doesn't leave audience members scratching their heads over what exactly Tom Bombadil is and why he never shows up again. There's really not much to say about it. He adds nothing to the big plot, he's too vague to be interesting, and his absence is a benefit. But my favorite thing that the movies did better than the books? Making Boromir sympathetic. Anybody who's read The Fellowship of the Ring will know that Boromir does not come off as a nice person. He doesn't have many lines, and he's usually used in the books as a voice of opposition to Gandalf or Aragorn so that they look better by comparison. Even when he redeems himself by dying to protect Merry and Pippin, it's not even depicted in the books except as a flashback. But the movies, they play the hell out of Boromir's sacrifice. It's one of the saddest moments in the film. Now, some have said that this glorification of Boromir's heroics goes against Tolkien's intentions of showing that warriors and military might doesn't make a good man. And there is a strong case for that kind of reasoning. I mean, I even wrote a term paper about it in university. But my point goes beyond Boromir's last moments. I'm talking about his evolution as a character during the film. He starts off as an arrogant Gondorian patriot, but as the movie goes on, he forms bonds with his fellow travelers, often in the background of the film so you don't always notice. He looks after Merry and Pippin on multiple occasions. He comforts Gimli when he finds out Balin is dead or when they think Gandalf is dead. He confides in Aragorn about the fate of Gondor. All of this shows a good man straining to do what's expected of him in a war he never asked for. And this is especially true if you watch the extended version of The Two Towers, which shows Boromir's last moments with his father and brother before he went to Rivendell. I should say, this level of sympathy we feel for Boromir could not exist without the incredibly underrated performance by Sean Bean. Most people seem to treat Sean Bean as a punchline, but he's a very capable actor. I think if I got to pick the Oscar nominations for that year, I would have given a nomination to Sean Bean. It's one of the most enduring performances in the film, and it stands head and shoulders above what Tolkien did with Boromir.